So your salt system screen will initially look like this. If you have the IQ monitoring system, it will eventually turn into a different screen, and this will be part of a submenu. But initially, when you have your salt system installed, the screen will look like this. So there's a few facets to this screen that I want to make sure you guys understand. The first being this button on the far right. This button looks just like your salt cell that actually gets put into the hot tub here. That salt cell button is what's used to replace your cartridge. The FreshWater cartridges last 4 months, and it's usually phrased as up to, because it depends on how you actually use the system, whether or not it's going to last those full 4 months. I've seen 3 months, I've also seen 5 months, so it does fluctuate. The cartridge has a useful life, and the system will actually tell you when the cartridge is done with and when you need to replace it, and it's pretty accurate within a few days, I would say. So when you go into this menu and your system says you need to replace the cartridge, you have to hit this button, because that'll do two things. One is it will turn off your circulation pump. This is the only way that you can actually turn your circ pump off manually. It will turn that off so that it's not leaking when you take the cell out. And the other part to it is the system has to know that you actually replaced it, and this will give the system a way to kind of recognize that you're replacing the cartridge. Okay, so it's every 4 months that you have to do that. On the left here, this represents your salt. You'll see a different variant on every single hot tub, but it will have the same sort of color gradient that you see here, where red on either side is bad. On the low side, that's on the bottom here, or if you have a Paradise model, it's on the left. Anywhere in the yellow or the green is acceptable, and then anywhere on the top or on the Paradise model on the right is considered too high of salt. So this is just strictly measuring how much salt do I have in my hot tub. And as long as you're within the yellow or the green, you're in a good spot. You also have this bar indicating where you actually sit on this gradient. It's very similar on the Paradise series. It's just a blue bar instead of a black one. But this strictly represents how much salt did I put in my water initially, and then as time goes on, how much have I been expelling into the water with my usage and with my maintenance. Okay? The next thing is your output. The output basically represents now that everything is in a good spot, meaning we have the right amount of salt, we have a good cartridge, and our filter is clean. Now, how much do we want to output in terms of chlorine? For most people, I start them at about a 6 or a 7, so 60 or 70%. For most people, that is sufficient, and that keeps up with their maintenance. However, if you're someone who uses it every single night for an hour at a crack with 2 or 3 people, that's what we consider to be high usage, and for that reason, we would want you to maybe turn it up to an 8 or potentially a 9. Just note that the longer you have your output at a higher value, and I'd say anything over 8 is what I'd consider to be a higher value, it's going to diminish the life of the cartridge. So if you're someone who needs the 9 or the 10 value, just know that your cartridge won't last as long as a result. So you can supplement with chlorinated shock instead of turning up your salt system to that 9 or 10 output level. You have the plus and minus, so you can adjust it really easily. And whatever it has it set at, it's going to keep it. The only exception to that is it does have a 10-day vacation mode setting, where after 10 days, if you don't go into this menu, it's going to assume you're not using the hot tub, and it's going to turn your output down from that original 7, 8, 9 down to more of like a 2 or a 3, because it's assuming you don't need as much chlorine. So just note that, and the way that you reset the timer is to just go back into this menu and see that it says no action needed. All right, and then there's 2 more buttons here. On the bottom left is test. You'll have a test button on the Paradise series as well, so this will be very similar. The test happens every hour on the hour on its own. The salt system will do that on its own. However, you can manually test if you don't want to wait for the 2 hour or the hour timer. And what that represents is it's testing for three things. How much salt do we have in the hot tub? Is it in a good spot? What's the useful life of the cartridge? How long has it been since we put a new one in? And then, is our filter clean? If the filter's not clean, it's not going to allow for the proper amount of water flow to the salt system, and then it's going to give you weird errors and think that something is off. So cleaning your filter is just as important as those other two steps. And then the last button we have here is the boost button. The boost button will, if you turn it on, it will turn on for 24 hours and it will turn itself off automatically. It's going to run at a 10 output for the entire 24-hour period and then turn itself off. So what we tell people to use this for is if you have a big party or if you have a bunch of little kids in there, or you're using your hot tub a little bit more than you would in a normal instance. If you hit the boost, it's going to output a ton of chlorine into the hot tub, kill off whatever contaminants happen to be in there at that time, and then help them gas off so we can get rid of them, so we can maintain clear water. So that is the salt system menu as a whole. Let us know if you have any questions.